David, it's wonderful to meet you, sir. Thank you for taking a minute out today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
You bet. So, before we get into your life of coaching and writing and all of these wonderful things that you're doing, I want to know first and foremost one of the biggest shifts and biggest things that happened in our recent lifetime is this pandemic 5 years ago. We were knee deep in it, trying to figure out the unknown. How much of living through that has influenced or affected the way that you live your life today?
It taught me a lot about being under pressure. That was for me, my dream was to open my own business and live in San Diego. I live in San Diego. In January 2020, I signed the lease to open a retail store, all things mindfulness and meditation supply store. And I had a 2-year-old at the time and a newborn due in June 2020. So it taught me so much about, first of all, it was a store about wellness and mental health. So it taught me how to like embody those practices during the storm.
Yeah.
So I constantly go back to just the gold I got from being under pressure of learning what those practices are for me that keep you moving forward amongst uncertainty.
So let's get to the heart and soul of what you do on a daily basis. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of kids. It's the best way to do it. Fifth graders, career day. The kid in the back of the room is like, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer him?
Yeah, for the kids, it's I help people create their dreams and create beyond their dreams.
So, what did you want to be in the fifth grade? What was your dream?
Soccer player.
Okay, okay. Like specifically, what league? Where'd you want to do it?
Goalie for the U.S. national team and playing the MLS. And that was my life since fifth grade all the way to high school and early college. But I had back surgery my junior year in high school, which put a damper on things.
You know what I never realized until I got older, I had some friends in my 20s that watched soccer, and our team here at Sporting KC used to be the Wizards. And I had no idea that Kansas City would become such a huge soccer capital. We're going to get the World Cup in a couple of years. Sporting KC, when you walk in and see a game there, they call it the Blue Cauldron. It's like an area that is like fanatics. That place is crazy. In fact, my son is really into indoor soccer. And you guys have the San Diego Sockers, and then we're the Comets. And it's just people love it, man. It's like, we're a baseball football town, obviously with the dynasty, but
Yeah.
soccer's huge here.
Yeah, it's crazy to see it like blow up more and more. Because when I was in high school and even younger than that, it wasn't quite as big.
Yeah,
MLS was still big, but nowadays so many people are into it. I'm like, oh, this is awesome.
it is. It totally is. So, how did you get to this point where mindfulness and coaching and helping people get to that happy place? Take me back to your childhood, where you were born and raised, and what were the foundational seeds that were planted that evolved into you, who you are today?
Yeah, there's really two critical moments. One was when I was really young, my parents got divorced, no fault of their own. But it just instilled, we all have our moments that kind of start to define who you are or the potential. So for me, there was a moment when they were arguing. I was screaming back at them. I was like 3 or 4. It didn't do anything, but what that instilled was a feeling of voicelessness and powerlessness underneath, kind of subconsciously. And then just to fast forward really quick, another pivotal moment was I lost my dad suddenly at the age of 11.
Wow.
He was a crop duster and he was fighting fires in Idaho as a pilot and crashed. But those moments sent me on the work that I do today because when I lost my dad, I can look back and see that I started asking two deeper questions about life. What makes life worth living? Why can life be so painful? And that led me to uncover, to uncover that moment when my parents got divorced. But the beautiful thing is, we all have the opportunity. I just call this lead. You could call it emotional wounds. You call it limiting beliefs. You could call it trauma, whatever language you want to use, wording. I call it lead because you have the opportunity to turn it into gold. Right. So for me, by doing this work where I help people overcome their own limitations to create whatever their heart's desire is or their vision, that gives me fulfillment, right? I'm giving people tools to be more empowered to navigate the storm and practice mindfulness. Therefore, I'm getting the gold of fulfillment and purpose. And even like a podcast, if I were to get on a podcast 5 years, plus, I would be very stoic. I'd be sweating. I'd be losing track of what I'm going to say. So the fact that I get to share my message in various ways, and I've like gone through years and years of practice and being bad at it, now it's that much more enjoyable to share as well.
So, along this path of finding fulfillment and happiness, there's a certain amount of risk. There's things that you have to do to get to that point. What was the first step for you? When did you realize you were on your way to a level of happiness that was different from your childhood or from, you know, more in the vein of what you wanted for your life?
Okay. I go to two places. One, maybe you can relate. Having a kid
Yep.
does that for you. It
Yep.
just switches gears and you just like go time. The other part for me was going for it. There was a lot of risk involved in going for a business all on my own, especially when family and some friends were like, hey, it's not a great time. You have a kid, you have another one coming. Like, you should really reconsider this. So there was a lot of risk with that. And what I can say is if you're willing to go for it and not know where you end up, like I went through the store, it was a year and a half. I got out of the lease early. We just could not create momentum by opening, closing, opening, closing. So eventually I got out, but during that time, I realized that one-to-one transformation, that's my sweet spot. Like managing a big team and starting a franchise, not my sweet spot. So
Yeah.
it was by taking that risk of what I thought I truly wanted, like would show me what really gave me the most fulfillment and where my zone of genius is.
So, who's been an inspiration? Who's been a heroic force that's helped you become who you are today?
Peter Crone is one of my mentors that I've got to study a little bit underneath. Uh, Jamie Wheal is another big mentor. Tony Robbins, not as much, but he's definitely somebody who I've followed some of his work as well.
So if you could meet any of those or anybody on the planet that's inspirational or that you find amazing and spend a little time with them, see how they roll. Is there anybody you would like to meet and hang out with?
Well, I guess the first two, Jamie Wheal I've met in person, so would Peter Crone's one, just because same mission and same type of work. Um, there's one person I think about of Ram Dass, but he's passed away just because he's the most who I consider not most, but embodiment of just being love,
Yeah.
which I think is so powerful in of itself.
So every day you wake up, what do you find yourself needing to find a balance between your work, your family, your own soul? How do you approach each day with the motivation that you have? How does that work for you?
Yeah, it's been helpful for me to break things down in seasons. And sometimes I even get more granular in like a sprint or an experiment with different seasons. So first it comes back to the vision. What's the current vision? But then as well as you could say kind of calendar surrender, like when it comes to family time, right? So like creating a work day where there's a hard cutoff time and using that kind of as pressure to get the things done that you need to get done so that when that time hits, that you're just free and open with the family. So if like it depends on what the vision is in the business or personal life. Maybe you're in a season where business is cruising and everything's flowing. So it's like, okay, how do I put the boundaries, the containers or blocks on the schedule to free up the space consistently to focus on the things that I want to do? So it's almost like playing like Lego pieces with your calendar, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, it totally does. So what's the best advice you've ever gotten?
Best advice I've ever gotten. Ooh, let me think about this one. What comes up for me is at the end of the day, it's what would love do?
Yeah.
Not thinking about it so much.
So let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into an 18-year-old version of you, ready to go out, charge into the world. And you could give that young version of you a piece of advice based on this life you've lived, the wisdom you've accumulated. What advice would you dispense?
Yeah, mine would be play harder. What I mean by that, play the game of life harder. Like whatever you're doing, if I could tell myself to cultivate one skill, it's like whatever you're doing in the moment, put your full effort just into that thing. And if you do that, like so many other things will open up and it can become a beautiful game of surprise too, to see where you end up in life.
So, speaking of playing hard, let's say you walked into a room of all of the clients that you've worked with over the years, and you could go to the front of that room in front of a podium and tell them one fun thing about you, a fun story, something that would maybe humanize you in a different way, just a cool adventure. What would you tell that
Sure.
room?
Yeah, I would tell them that I come from a generation of Californians, pilots, and farmers.
Right on.
So I'm sixth and fifth generation Californian. One came out during the gold rush. I mean, both basically the gold rush era, but one came out on a boat, crossed Panama Canal by foot. The other one on covered wagons. And then it's both been this dichotomy on both sides of pilots and farmers, like simultaneously. One crop dusters, other one have a ranch up in Central California, and you'd always fly too. So uh, it's that which I like to bring in the coaching, containers of how can we stay grounded and get our hands dirty in the current reality of things, as well as how do we have that thrilling life vision that we're willing to fight gravity to go fly towards.
So, of all of the things that you've accomplished and evolved into at this point in your life, what are you ultimately the proudest of?
Being a father, uh, being able to grow with my wife, like during COVID and post that and through the stress, we like to compact a lot of life lessons in a short amount of time. Uh, and also too, just coming to like appreciate my unique gifts, which is a mix of like the alchemy and coaching, and being able to share that with others, help people reframe a lot of life to see more gold in life.
So everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, everyone that knows you, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I like to have fun and call myself an alchemist, turning things into gold. Um, but also just to me, to me, the real game is coming back to, from my perception, we're just divine beings. Like we're energetic beings having a human experience, connected to infinite intelligence and the energy of creation, which is the fancy word for love. So, like, we are these powerful beings who can create through our imagination in the world. And the more we can come back to that, the more powerful and just light and energized can be.
So in these very strange times in 2025, there's been a lot of things that have gone on that have shifted people to want to seek out help and want to be stronger humans. How do you remain positive, and are you hopeful for the future with everything that's going on?
Yeah, I mean, look at what mankind is capable of. Like, look at our ancestors, like what they've gone through. And let's not forget, it is the greatest time to be alive. Like, I live in San Diego. We can have almost anything I could think of through this company called Amazon ship something to my doorstep within days.
Yeah.
So it really is a beautiful era, and I like to remind, like, if I had a message like, "Hey humanity, we did it. We won. We can have an idea, type it on the computer, and a robot can go make it now." Like we mastered external reality, so it's just time for us to put up a mirror and realize, "Oh wow, we got to make some internal transformation." And we can also acknowledge too, like the truth, the more we can ground in the truth of life, the more we can alleviate kind of our natural biology that's going to get freaked out and uncertain and look for everything how it can go wrong. And what I mean by that is we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We don't know what's going to happen a month from today, a year from today. So if we can practice that, it's not easy, but if we can practice that, and this is maybe a little bit more grim, but the sun's going to burn out one day too.
Yeah.
So it's the evolution of life.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this. What's the best soccer game you've ever attended?
It was there was an Earthquakes game that used to be my favorite team. And then a little bit after that, my aunt surprised me and got me a jersey signed by the goalie and Landon Donovan.
Right on.
And then one day that fell from the wall and it had a big crack and it looked like it had an earthquake.
That's awesome. So let me ask you this. If you could get into a time machine and see one dream match, one game, where would you go?
Ooh, uh, I go back. I don't watch as much soccer nowadays. We'll go to Waves games and San Diego games now, but there was some really good World Cup games when I was a kid. I think it was either 94 or the 98 World Cup with Ronaldo and the whole Brazil team. Seeing that championship game would be a lot of fun.
Was that in Paris?
It might have been. I think
Okay,
so.
because I remember that was Gonzo. I remember when that was happening, that whole town was rocking. Like it was a different feeling, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to wrap my head around A, how did Kansas City get the World Cup? And B, what's going to happen here? I mean, we're not. I think there's a notion that we're kind of this sleepy cow town, and we're actually we're getting more metropolitan arts, culture, all of that, but still the amount of human beings from around the world that are going to descend on this town is like I
Yeah.
can't even imagine. It's going to be wild,
It
you know.
is. It's exciting. And yeah, that might be when I come out to Kansas City.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's a great town. So let me ask you this. If anyone wants to reach out, they have any questions, they want to find out more about what you're doing and partake, how do they do that?
Yeah, currently you can go to my website, which is a temporary, I'm rebuilding it, but it's davidggilbert.com.
Okay, excellent. David, this has been wonderful. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your story. Thank you
Yes.
for your time, and best of luck with everything.
Thank you for having me, Joe.
Absolutely. Thank you. Hello, friends. Joe Dimino here. I just wanted to let you know that after 30 years or so, I have finally released my first book of poetry through the mighty Spartan Press here in Kansas City, Missouri. As the creator and host of both Neon Jazz Radio and the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino podcast, along with being a visual artist, I'm ready to embark on a new adventure and want you to be a part of it. You can get a copy online via Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and actually on the streets in Kansas City at the great Prospero's bookstore off 39th Street. You can also visit joedimino.com for links to the book, to more poetry, and everything in my world, including paintings. Thanks for all of the love and support over the years, and please dig the words.